What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Happy Sunday Night Football. Joe Flacco lays a stinker. The Vikings get back in the winner's circle and take out the Indianapolis Colts. Big win for Minnesota. You had Sam Darnold throwing some touchdowns, Brian Flores dominating Flacco, and some quarterback controversy moving forward because, hey, that's what happens when you bench a guy for an older guy, which was the right move, but then that guy, for the most part, does not look very good, and your offense is horrendous. We will dive into it all. Also, wanted to dive into some other stuff. Couple things that really stood out to me today, and I'm guilty of this, is the hype machine. And I think sometimes we need to pump the brakes. Tom Brady had a moment today in what at the time felt like the most pivotal play in the game, and his regulations on what he can and can't say came to light. And I want to talk about that. And also, what else? Oh, so we got to talk a little bit about the Bears, just coaching in general. Sometimes like you just watch a program in college, an NFL team, and you go, well, what are we doing? What are we arguing over? And then probably the worst game that you'll ever see happen today. The Saints lost to the Panthers and have now lost 7 straight games. They were 2-0. We'll dive into it. I mean, who saw that coming? Also, went on with Colin earlier. You can check that out. YouTube, podcast. Talked a little bit of everything. Obviously, the Cowboys, who are terrible, and a lot of other stuff. The Lions had a great win. The Rams somehow won in overtime on a Matt Stafford deep bomb. Great one-handed catch. Today was, the afternoon was good. The morning was mostly not great, but hey, it's NFL football. It's better than not having NFL football. We're going to miss it when it's gone after the Super Bowl. So I try to enjoy every Sunday. But before we dive in to what I want to talk about, the Sunday night game, I got to tell you about my friends at Game Time, the official ticketing app of this podcast. And here's the thing. Do you want to go to a game? Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go enjoy yourself? Jason Kelce went to a game yesterday, Penn State. Looked like he was having a good all time until he wasn't. And he had to get humble a guy, rightfully so. A lot of people are tough on the internet streets. Then they get in real life. But hopefully Jason Kelce, if he was sitting there with his 12-pack, use Game Time, because you can go to any college game. You can go to any NFL game. You can go to any NBA or NHL game. Obviously concerts. I've never been to Taylor Swift, but a lot of you guys, younger daughters, nieces, hell, maybe your nephews or your sons like them. You want to go to see Taylor Swift? You want to go see anyone that's big touring? We got you covered. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. The Minnesota Vikings win a game 21-13. And as the game was going on in the second half, and Flacco mainly looked like shit, and Sam Darnold was throwing touchdown pass after touchdown pass. Now, he did throw a couple interceptions, and one of them, was a really good play by the defensive back that, as they said on the broadcast, kind of turned into like Troy Polamalu. Did a little freelancing, went in front of a ball to Justin Jefferson. Good play. But, I guess where I want to start with this is, whenever you just draft a guy high and just make him the quarterback and your team turns out to be really talented, you can have problems because those guys go, well, I had to earn my job. Because at most other positions, basically every other position, you have to earn the job, right? When you're drafting the second round, the third round, the fourth round, guys that you sign as free agents, like everything's kind of competitive. No one is on scholarship. And even if you are a highly paid player, if you do not perform, you will get benched really, really quick. And in a lot of the positions, because you're constantly rotating, wide receiver, running back, tight end, defensive line, even defensive backs, the guys that start playing well, it's like riding the hot hand. They just end up playing more. And then they eventually become starters very, very quickly, right? There's some offensive line positions. If I sign you to a big contract as a free agent, I'm going to make you the starter because I paid you a lot of money. But if you don't perform well, we will rotate other guys in. It happens all the time. I will not just roll with a bad right tackle. But at quarterback, it's like, and I saw this with the 49ers a couple years ago when they just named Trey Lance the starter. It's like, well, Jimmy Garoppolo, who ended up coming back to the roster, if they just would have had a quarterback competition, he never would have beat him out. Ever. It's why I give Kevin O'Connell a lot of credit. He signed Sam Darnold to $10 million, and then he drafts a guy in the top 15 who he goes, he's our future. But he didn't even go, hey, we are going to have a quarterback competition. He basically just named Sam Darnold the starting quarterback. And a lot of people were pushing, like, why don't you make this a quarterback competition? Probably essentially was. Clearly wanted to take the pressure off of his top draft pick. Now, obviously, JJ ended up getting injured in preseason, so it became a moot point. But it's pretty clear that JJ McCarthy could never beat out this version of Sam Darnold if they had a quarterback competition. And then during the game tonight, as Sam Darnold's making a bunch of plays, they go over and show the camera goes right to JJ. And Mike Tirico throws it to Chris, and he goes, he's the quarterback of the future. They have created their books to make it about him. Well, there is no guarantee that JJ McCarthy is going to be even close to as good as this version of Sam Darnold in 2 years, let alone next year. And right now, as you saw tonight, Justin Jefferson is by far, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the NFL. If you gave every general manager and every head coach, a draft pick, and they said you can have one wide receiver in the NFL, I think it would be borderline unanimous that he would be the pick. And he's in the peak of his powers. Jordan Addison is a excellent number 2 wide receiver. Obviously, now you got Hockenson back from injury, and Aaron Jones, as Collinsworth said tonight, is kind of like a receiver in this running back body. Fantastic player. These guys are built to win right now. And clearly this team, now they got 6 wins. They're probably not going to win the division. I think we all like the Lions, but they're going to the playoffs. This is a playoff team. And this is one of those teams that you would not feel that comfortable playing as like the Atlanta Falcons. If I'm the 3 seed and they're the 6 seed, like, good luck in that game. Like, excellent defensive coordinator, excellent offensive head coach / play caller, quarterback who has a lot of experience, is playing at a high level, and obviously a ton of weapons. I'm not saying that they are locked to win a playoff game, but they are going to be a very, very tough out. But how can you look at any of the players on your team, especially their defensive guys? Van Ginkel's a really good player. They have some other young bodies up front, and say that Sam Darnold doesn't give us the best chance to win. And this goes to the Colts' current problem of they made a move this week because they had to. None of those guys on the Indianapolis Colts could look at Anthony Richardson after that game and take him seriously. It couldn't happen. You had to go to it. But I talked about it with Stuckey on Thursday when we recorded for the weekend. It's like, listen, I like Joe Flacco, and he's a fun story, and I understand why if I was in the shoes of general manager or head coach for the Colts, I would have gone to him too. But I do think we hold him to a higher esteem because it's been such a fun story over the last, 12 months, essentially. He probably started playing, early to mid-November last year. And then the couple games that he played this year for the Colts, than he actually is as a player. And you saw tonight against a good defense, can't really move, can't ad-lib, and showed some signs of his age. Now, is he still better than Anthony Richardson? Clearly, the Colts believe that's so. But part of the reason they got into this problem, when you look at Minnesota, that was like, listen, this guy's our starting quarterback. Now, if JJ was so unbelievable, I do believe if he was healthy, he could have beaten him out. But that would have meant he would have looked like Jayden Daniels or something. CJ Stroud last year. That wasn't going to be the case because this was a project to begin with when you watched him in Michigan. But they at least like, hey, the best guy is going to play. And it was clearly Sam Darnold. Meanwhile, the Colts just put a guy in on scholarship because he was drafted at number 4 overall. But it doesn't happen at other positions. Like, I draft Latu really high. Like, if he's not playing well, other guys are going to rotate. I draft Adonai Mitchell really high from Texas. Like, if he's not producing, other guys are going to play. Every other position, it's like the fucking Hunger Games. Yet at quarterback, it's like, this guy's on scholarship. We draft him in the top 5. Here's your spot. And then it's like, this guy's not good enough. And Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman and DeForest Buckner and Kenny Moore and all these cats are looking around like, what the hell, man? Like, this is not how it works. And I give the Minnesota Vikings a ton of credit for just running a high-level operation and not finding themselves in that situation. Now, I do think, like, big picture, they're good. I mean, you see Jefferson tonight? Like, how dominant of a player is that guy? Their offense, I mean, I know they only scored 21 points. Colts defense actually playing pretty well. It's just hard not to like all the guys on that offense. Devastating blow last week, losing their left tackle. Good move by the front office, trading for the dude from Jacksonville, which an upgrade over the backup they had who was getting smoked last week in the second half. But I just think that big picture, you got to ask yourself, like, you just going to let this guy walk and go to JJ McCarthy, who you hope? Like, that's not a great business strategy, keeping your fingers crossed and hoping. That's usually when you find yourself in these situations. And next year, if the kid was struggling, all of a sudden you would get resentment from your star wide receivers, from your stud defensive players. Be like, we didn't have to go down this route. And now the Colts find themselves in this really weird situation. What is the right thing to do? What is the wrong thing to do? Where do we go from here? Does this guy really just get indefinite starts? Or do we go back to Anthony Richardson? Did our team already turn on the guy? I don't know. But you watch him tonight, you're like, well, I understand Minnesota is a tough defense to play because you never know what's coming. Every other play, he's got like 9 guys in the line of scrimmage. Collinsworth's like, he could bring them all, or he could drop 8, So you just never know what's going to happen. And Flacco is swimming. Now, is every defense that good? Of course not. But, like, to make a run, to make the playoffs, like, you're going to have to beat good teams. And I just don't know, man. I think the Colts now are in this bizarre spot that they got to because of the way it led up in the offseason when they just put a guy on scholarship because they drafted him there, where it doesn't really happen in another position. Now, if the guy earns it, like Jayden Daniels earns it, like clearly one of the best players in the league. Even Caleb, who's having a shitty rookie year, like Tyson Badgett ain't better than him, right? So when you're room, you better make sure the best player is on the field. Because if you lose the group of players on your own team, you got a problem. Now, obviously the Colts didn't. They were playing their ass off. Like, the effort tonight, the game was bad. The effort was really good. Minnesota, now they're 6-2. They got at the Jaguars, at the Titans, and at the Bears. I mean, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to look up and they're going to be 8-3. That's worst case. I mean, they're going to be favored in all 3 of those games. So it's not inconceivable they're 9-2. Shows you how good that division is. Green Bay, rough day. We'll dive into them in a little bit, but there was a stretch tonight where, listen, I'm not acting like Sam Darnold is the second coming of Joe Montana here, but it's just, I've watched enough football to know just because you draft a guy high. I mean, how many touchdowns Sam Darnold throw this year? I mean, I think he had 14 coming in tonight. So what's he have now? He threw 3 more tonight. That's 17 touchdowns on the year. I mean, he's 14. I don't know if that counts tonight or not. Dude's balling. Dude makes plays. Dude's an explosive playmaker who's also athletic. And Kyle believed in it. Now Kevin O'Connell believed in it. And I do wonder if this offseason it could get a little weird. Like, if you're a coach, it's still a pretty big risk to take with the unknown. You saw it with Anthony Richardson. They just kept their fingers crossed, and it was an absolute roller coaster ride. The NFL season is rolling along, and contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns. I love doing it. Touchdown passes, touchdown runs, long runs, the tush push. Well, not today. You name it, they will do it. Bet on touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like a player scoring a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. I do it every day in the office watching football. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings app today and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets. If your bet wins, you win. Bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Where do I want to go now? Lions, Packers. Colin and I talked a lot about it, so you can hear us kind of breaking down parts of the game. And obviously, when Jordan Love threw the interception for the pick six to make it 17-3, you could essentially say the game ended on that given play. I am guilty of this, so I'm not trying to act like I'm above this or I'm any different than anyone. I get excited. I'm part of the hype machine. I love this stuff. So it's easy when you start talking about something, when you like a player or when you see something, to get overexcited. I was like that when I worked in the NFL, and I've been like that for a decade plus podcasting and working on radio. It's just a natural, I think a lot of us fans, us to talk about it, people in the NFL, it's easy to get excited. But I do think we need to be careful, and I'm learning a big lesson right now of anointing guys, because Jordan Love's a good example. That those final 8 games of the season were unreal. I mean, he looked like Aaron Rodgers. And then he plays the playoff game against Dallas, and he lights them up like a Christmas tree. And he played, very valiant effort on the road against the Niners. This year, we have tried to make a million excuses for him. But he throws a bunch of touchdowns, but he lets it rip. Well, he's the best combination and has some of the qualities of Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. I've said these things. I started thinking today, watching him throw that ball to, I forget his name, 31 on the Lions, who walked it right into the end zone. Like, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre combined for 7 MVP awards. 7. I think both would be considered top 10 quarterbacks of all time. And we throw these names around. And listen, Jordan Love, if he is your third quarterback in the order of those two guys, that's an incredible hit. Like, he's already a hit. But he does some stuff right now that, like, his greatness does not rise above his disasters. Because that pick today, and listen, I understand he's banged up, which is also a problem. Like, this is his second year playing, and he's already had, like, multiple injuries. Today's a day against the Lions, who had a lot of question marks coming into the game. Can they play outdoors? Can Jared Goff function in bad weather? And then right when you turn on the game at, I guess that's for me now, Mountain West time, because Arizona, we don't change the clocks, 2:25 Mountain West time, that it's like, oh, this is pretty ugly. Listen, I like 80 degrees. I like 80 degrees about 6 months a year. I do like the heat, so I don't mind 100 degrees 3 months a year. Don't love 110, but I like it hot. I do love my football in shitty weather. Like, I love ugly football. Not every game, but give me a game that matters in bad weather. Rainstorm, wind, like that to me is pro football, that game. And historically, I mean, the Packers, they're at home. Lambeau, they're used to it. Detroit, also in a bad weather city, they play in a dome. Jared Goff, historically, bad outdoors. It's like Dan Campbell. He's built like a Harbaugh brother or a Mike Tomlin. Like, that's kind of the, under the umbrella that he would fall. But it's like, can his team, like, I know he wants to be able to do it. And then they come in and they're just the more buttoned up outdoor team. And Jared Goff doesn't even come remotely close, even throwing an incompletion. And you got Jordan Love slinging bombs down the field like, bro, in a driving torrential downpour and also on the floor, we don't need bombs. How about just throw some basic routes and move the chain? But I do think we got to be very careful about, like, he's got a little Rodgers and Favre. I'm the number one culprit here. But we do it all over. Trevor Lawrence, greatest prospect since Luck and Elway and Peyton Manning. Bullshit. I watch Trevor Lawrence and I go, this guy's barely a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. He has been average as the day is long all year long with a lot of shitty mixed in. And what happened today? With Nick Sirianni dying to give them a chance. Because he goes for it, he refuses to kick field goals. When he finally does, his kicker misses and tush push is not working. They have a chance to win the game. Trevor Lawrence throws a pick that wasn't even remotely close to being completed. And all we heard for 2 years of him in college, this guy's going to change a team. Well, yeah, because that team is going to give him way too much money and they're going to be screwed because he's going to be an anchor on their salary cap. We're seeing it with Caleb Williams. All I heard, and listen, I bought into it too because I watched him play. I'm like, God, this guy's a freak talent. Look at this guy move. Look at this arm strength. He's carrying Lincoln Riley and USC, whose program sucks. But when you watched him play, you're like, God, this guy can really play. You know what turns out 2 months into the season? He's not even remotely close to Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is in a different stratosphere. Jayden Daniels isn't playing with the talent that he's playing with. He's got Keenan Allen, who's been one of the best receivers in the league for like a decade. DJ Moore, start on every team in the NFL. And Rome Odunze was a top 10 pick. Swift, Komet, like these guys are good players. And he looks terrible. I mean, looks terrible. Is it all his fault? Of course not. Coaches on that staff are all going to get fired. Maybe even tomorrow. But he does not look good. And you can remove him from his coaching staff and watch him in a vacuum. Like, obviously, playing for Kevin O'Connell is good for Sam Darnold. But I can also just watch him on a given play and go, he ad-libbed that, he broke a tackle, he scrambled out, and he made a great pass. Like, that's just talent. And I watch Caleb Williams, I'm like, I know you got a big arm, and I know you can move, but, like, where is it? Like, this stuff isn't that complicated. We're not creating SpaceX here. Can you, like, complete a route when it's not there initially? And the answer is like, no, not really at all. So, like, the Jordan Love thing, like LaFleur, they got to find some balance there. One, they got to find a way to keep him healthy. But the complete reckless play is not going to work in these big games. And yeah, Favre had his moments. Favre also won 3 straight Most Valuable Player of the Year awards in a league that had guys like Troy Aikman, Steve Young, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith was the best player in the league for 3 straight years and went to back-to-back Super Bowls. So yeah, the guy that threw a bunch of picks and, you know, I think has the most picks in NFL history and obviously had some bad moments. Aaron Rodgers never threw a pick. Sometimes drive people nuts, like push the ball. This guy is just making some of the most bonehead plays in a game where you couldn't afford it. Because in that type of weather, the one part about, like, some people just need 38 to 34 to be entertained. I do not. I do not at all. I can be thoroughly entertained in a game in the teens. And that was a game you could feel right away, like, 17 to 14 might win this game. Turnovers, obviously there might be a freak fumble if someone doesn't hold on the ball. We cannot throw any interceptions. And he just he might as well just handed the ball to the guy. That's basically what he did. And listen, like, this guy went from 0 to 60 because, and I'm a fan. It's not like I'm jumping off the bandwagon, but like that just can't happen. The play in the Minnesota game, like, these are the best teams. We're not playing in a couple weeks like the Eberflus fucking Bears or the skinny former porn addict Carolina Panthers, Canales, who actually won today. So, or Dennis Allen. That's fairness to Canales. He won. Dennis Allen lost to Canales. That's pretty bad. But it cannot happen. Not at home. Like, that's part of your advantage is playing in that weather. That's what I was telling Colin. Like, one of the great parts about the Patriots that made them this unstoppable dynasty was for 2 months. I mean, how many games did Belichick and Brady play in games that look like that? And they were so comfortable in them, always. And now that like their entire team either has a podcast or is on TV, they're like, yeah, Bill, just make us practice outside. Make us practice outside. Hell, he'd take us outside sometimes during rainy weeks, and we'd be like, Coach, we're playing the Vikings this week on the road. They play in the dome. He's like, yeah, we just want to practice. So when we do see rain later. And they were always so comfortable in those weather environments. The Packers live, breathe, all their players. Like that's, and Detroit comes and they're like extremely comfortable in that. So incredible win by the Lions. Just punked Jordan Love and LaFleur, who obviously is gimping around out there. But man, the hype train on some of these guys is just not living up to it. Hell, even Tua. Like, I give the guy credit. Like, he plays. He's looked really good the last 2 weeks. Concussed, healthy Tua, or not concussed, healthy Tua, is just like a very functional player. Now, when the weather turns, you got to be careful. You know, Tua, you would not like him in a Packer environment today. You bet against him. But I give Tua credit. He just plays well most weeks. One thing that happened, though, today in that game, and this has been something that just eats at me, is in college football when you get targeting the kid, because that's what they are, kids who get tossed out of the game and then have to miss a half of the following game, is the most egregious penalty in the history of sports. It is pure insanity. Do you know that most of these guys, like 95% of them, I don't care what school we're talking about, will not play football after college. So you were talking a tiny, tiny percentage of players in college football that will ever play in the NFL. And most guys in college football are not 3 or 4 year starters. I would say over half start for like 2 years max. So you're talking, even if you're at a Power 4 conference, like 26 to 28 games max in your playing career. So to kick a guy out of a game and then to remove him from a following game is, to me, beyond over the top. I've been saying this forever. In college and the pros, no one's trying to hurt anyone anymore. These plays are happening at warp speed. Obviously, sometimes helmet-to-helmet collisions happen. But to me, I don't even remember the last time I saw intent. And here's the other thing. And Tom Brady hit on this a while back when he went on that long, like, kind of rant about quarterback play. There are things called hospital balls. Derek Carr threw one today. They got Chris Olave killed. Jordan Love threw one today. They got Brian Branch thrown out of the game. Why do the defenders pay the price for horrendous quarterback play? Last year, Gardner Minshew did it against the Steelers. And the Steeler player who got tossed out of that game then got suspended. Nothing happens to the quarterback. It's like, free 15 yards for a shitty pass, who in 35 years of my life would have been an incompletion and got his teammate more than likely stretchered off. Now, no one wants anyone stretchered off. So I understand the penalty system. And I even get helmet to helmet. But kicking people out of the game and nothing ever happens to the quarterback, to me, is like, there's something's off here. The pendulum is swung too far. To throw Branch out of that game, it was fucking insanity. I felt the moment, like a couple series later when Jordan Love threw the pick six, karma worked. He did not deserve to get thrown out of the game. The other thing is, you cannot throw the NBA. Nothing drives me more nuts when a player says like F you to a referee and he gets tossed. It's like, guys, this isn't high school. This ain't even college. This is the big leagues with millions of dollars on the line. In normal business situations, people scream at each other all the time. Sometimes, in business, someone else fucks you. And what usually happens? You scream at each other. And you either figure it out in court, over the phone, someone mitigates it, something happens. in sports, like, I'm sorry, bad words fly around. That always drives me just crazy. And it's happened to Draymond a lot. I will never, ever agree with, like, oh, he said a bad word. You got to go. This ain't high school basketball. And I'm sorry, in the pros, for someone to hit someone really hard. And sometimes it's also based on the result. When a guy's lying there dead, you toss him out. That didn't happen here in the Lions-Packer game. But for him to get thrown out was, I think, one of the most egregious things I've seen this year from the officiating. And then Tom Brady, who is in the booth, is like a scared cat. Because if it was Aikman or if it was Collinsworth, they would have lost their shit. Because no one could watch that game unless you're a Packer fan and not go, that's one of the worst calls I've ever seen. That cannot happen. And Brady's like, yeah, I kind of disagree with it. And I don't blame him. He just invested into something for probably way cheaper than it should have been, and it's going to make him a ton of money and probably lead him to own the Raiders one day. So I'm not trying to be anti-invested in the Raiders. If I was him, I would do that too. And I've also thought that not being able to communicate with the teams and the coaches a little overblown. Why? He can get these guys on the phone at a moment's notice. He calls Sean McVay or Andy Reid in a game plan meeting, and they would pick up his call. There's a small list of human beings in every industry that get their phone call picked up basically no matter what. 24/7, 365. He happens to be one of those. A lot of other broadcasts, Jonathan Vilma ain't getting his phone call picked up by every coach and every GM in the league. He might get a call back eventually, but Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, their phone calls are being picked up when they call. But not being able to criticize the officials, part of being an analyst is representing us and understanding what the consumer is watching and know when something isn't fair and isn't right. And he couldn't say anything. And I do, like, part of the sport now, the most controversial part of football is the officiating because it is consistently so terrible. Aikman and Collinsworth constantly lose it. It's the most relatable thing on television when it comes to football. And Tom's not going to be able to do it because he can't, because he owns a team. I was playing golf on Saturday morning, so I watched the Penn State game. I watched the first quarter at my house, and then I watched probably the last three quarters on my phone. I actually watched some of it this morning because they were replaying on Fox Sports 1 at the gym. And I know a lot of people from, Philly that went to Penn State, some of my very good buddies. And I can't even imagine how disappointed. I haven't talked to any of them, how disappointed they are, because that was embarrassing. And I think sometimes, like, once someone establishes who they are, we got to believe them and just acknowledge, like, this is what it is. And like James Franklin, like, there is no debating it anymore. Like, when he plays a big game, bet against him. Bet against him. Your boy right here might have sprinkled a little. I wanted a little sweat. Nothing crazy. Took him +3. Regretted it. Not immediately because they were up 10-0, but game's over. There's nothing even to debate anymore. When he plays a real team, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, you name it. When they get to the playoffs, bet against them. Last week, Matt Eberflus showed us who he was. The second to last play, they were clueless. They gave up a free 15 yards. The last play, one of his starting defenders is screaming at the fans and royally fucks them. I know coaches and players, but specifically coaches, love to say that one play didn't lose us the game. No one can argue. That play literally lost him the game. Tyreek Stevenson lost him the game last week. And I mentioned this to Colin, and I thought this. I flipped on the TV, and there he is. He's dressed out today. He didn't start the game. And then eventually, a couple series in, he came in. Like, this is Pee-wees, and you're late to practice, or don't hustle, and you get benched the following game. This is the pros. When you screw up, like Zeke Elliott, you get left at home. You get made inactive. I said it last week. I would have made him inactive. If he's going to dress, he just starts. We don't teach life lessons in the big leagues. All you guys know, in whatever industry you're in, your boss is not trying to help shape you as a human being. You have a job, you either get it done or you don't. Now, if you need to be reprimanded, it's black and white. And I felt like Eberflus looked like a high school coach doing this. And then his team got just curb stomped in Arizona. Thoroughly embarrassed. I thought the most, well, Saints, but Saints suck. Like the Bears win this game, then they get the Patriots next week. It's like their records are going to be pretty good. And they got killed today. If you're a Bears fan, this is how Penn State fans are now. How could you look at James Franklin the same? Like you are who you are. You're going to win us our 9-10 games. Maybe we'll get the 10-11 seed. We're going to have a bunch of guys drafted and we'll just be one and done. You're not a championship coach. You're just not even a high level coach. You're a great recruiter. You're a good program builder, but it is what it is. The Eberflus thing, there's nothing even to argue anymore. Your rookie quarterback looks like shit. Your defense missed a very important player today, Montez Sweat, and it looked like you were missing Reggie White, Montez Sweat, Mike Singletary, and Brian Urlacher and Peanut Tillman. You got shredded. It's DOA. It's over. Now, do you want to fire him tomorrow? Do you want to let him coach out the season? It's done. And it's just, I didn't know if they would win this weekend, but I did not think it would look like that. I thought they would have a little something to them. On the flip side, look at Washington, who gets the great win. Then they're playing New York, like classic young team. You could be like, they'll be feeling themselves. Maybe it wouldn't have been it would have been a very consistent theme throughout the history of sports. Washington goes in New York, lays an egg, or even has to somehow pull a game out of their ass because they were screwing around for a half. No, went in, kicked Aztec names, looked awesome. The score does not reflect what I witnessed. Now, granted, I had it on a 4-box, and every time I looked up, I'm like, this game. Not for one snap did you ever think the Giants had a chance. And I would say the same thing about the Bears. Not for 1 second today did you ever think they had a chance. And now if you're a Bears fan, life came at you fast. You were hoping that this would just kind of play itself out. Even if you just got a wild card, got beat in the first round, hey, we took a step. Is your quarterback any good? That's a fair question. Not talented. We know he's talented. Is he any good at playing football? We don't know. And the whole excuse is going to be it's all on the coaching staff, which may be fair. But now you got to fire all those guys. So it's just a disastrous situation for the franchise. And I think, Penn State fans learned at a higher level something very similar. And last but not least, I just don't know how you shake this loss. I got some things wrong this year. I'll be the first to admit. I had the Saints winning the division. I had them making the playoffs. I had Bo Nix winning the offensive rookie of the year. Swing and a miss. Sometimes, Aaron Judge gets up there. Every once in a while, hit a home run. Chargers playoffs, no big deal, 4-1. Derek Carr and the Saints losing to Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. I just pulled up the playoffs, for the NFC, just to see where, who was where, and basically just to see the whole conference. The Saints and the Carolina Panthers. We've been talking like Carolina Panthers, one of the worst teams we've seen in recent memory, and rightfully so. They're just an unwatchable squad. Then they play the Saints. They get the ball late, and they have to get a touchdown to win the game, and they drive and get a touchdown to win the game. Then the Saints lose. Derek Carr has now lost to 31 out of the 32 teams in the NFL. The only player in NFL history to have that feat. And they play the Raiders this year. So if he were to lose to the Raiders, obviously he could never have lost the Raiders. It's only his second year on the team. They haven't played him yet. And he was on them forever. Obviously, it's easy to figure out. He will have lost to all 32 teams. That's a pretty insane accomplishment and not some accomplishment that any human would want. And now Dennis Allen, this franchise, looks to be in complete shambles. You lose some games, you get some injuries. You cannot, under any circumstances, lose the Carolina Panthers and have anyone take you seriously. And they are a sleeper now. If you can't beat Carolina, you're going to be an underdog to every team you play. And all I hear is they're getting a bunch of guys back. They are in shambles. They got 1, 2, 3 Cancun written all over them, especially with a coach who also, like Eberflus, could be fired by Monday morning or by Monday at lunch. that I just don't think you shake that. That is by far the worst loss when you just say, if you're a fan, what? How, how am I supposed to watch this team play for another 2 months? We have 8 more games. I just don't think I can do it. And I have known Derek since he was at Fresno State. He has made a lot of money. He will have made, when the dust settles, more money in the NFL. And listen, I don't fault him for signing these contracts than any other player at quarterback who's never won a playoff game. And clearly, he's never going to win a playoff game. So this signing for the Saints, which I thought was going to come like and be a positive this year, and they were going to be a good team, and they won 9 games last year, has turned into an epic disaster. And Dennis Allen now, I mean, his win loss record is just an abomination. So I feel for you Saints fans. At least you got the LSU Tigers, who have a big game this week against Alabama. But what a week! I noticed this during the Sunday night game. Kevin O'Connell, if he was in Hollywood or like an actor, he would either play like the all-American dad who has like a great job, CEO, beautiful wife, couple young kids, everyone likes him. He just always looks so clean cut, so buttoned up, always looks well rested, even though he's a coach. He has looked the same body wise, like he never gains like an ounce of fat, like probably not a big dessert guy. He just looks the part. You know, it's like he just that guy was born to look good, and he's looked good every room he's walked into. He's 6'4", so the ladies love him. He has not had an issue in many departments of his life ever. And then you got Shane Steichen. Both these guys, one guy went to UNLV, the other guy went to San Diego State, so not exactly like Alabama and Texas. Shane Steichen always looks like he's coming off 3 hours of sleep. If he was in the movies or television shows, he would be that strung out cop who can never figure out who killed whoever and who's just sitting in the bar slamming whiskeys on the rock by himself. Hell, his partner could be Flacco, who's kind of a little more energetic, better looking version of Steichen. But Shane Steichen right now looks like shit. I mean, that guy just needs like 10 hours of sleep. I mean, that guy looks like just this season is driving him into the ground. Meanwhile, O'Connell, I mean, looks like he's still a player or something. He just looks fantastic. I just couldn't get over the contrast of those two human beings on the opposite sideline. It really is crazy. Shanahan went through this a little bit when they were losing his first couple years. He went from being like 38 to looking like 50. And then he's kind of just had the same grizzled look for like the last 5 or 6 years. I thought Steichen, I mean, he's always kind of had a little edge to him, kind of that kind of cop look. But you looked in his eyes today, you're like, Jesus, this guy, this guy's a weathered SOB. This has been a long year and a half in Indy. Anthony Richardson is driving this guy into the ground. So, yeah, hopefully we get a better game next Sunday night than Colts Vikings, though. Hopefully everyone's having a good night. Adios. Talk to you soon.